You know what's strange? You can talk normally to almost anyone until it's a girl you actually like, and suddenly your brain forgets how to be human. Let's find out why this happens, but before that, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Sometimes the hardest part is not talking to a girl. It is the 5 seconds before you speak, the strange pressure in your chest, the sudden awareness of your hands, your voice, your face, your every movement. And suddenly, something simple becomes impossible. You know how to talk. You talk to friends every day. You joke normally. You act naturally around almost everyone. But in front of a girl you find attractive, your brain changes. You overthink every word. You become careful, self-conscious, almost like you're being watched from the outside. And the strange part is, you do not fully understand why. Because this is usually not about girls. It is about what your brain believes is at stake. And most people never realize that. They think they are awkward, or weak, or bad at socializing. But the discomfort often begins much deeper than that. Most people think confidence is something you either have or do not have. But psychology tells a different story. Your brain is constantly calculating social risk, especially in situations connected to attraction, rejection, or status. And when you stand in front of a girl you like, your nervous system often treats the moment less like a conversation and more like an evaluation. Not consciously, but biologically, your brain starts predicting outcomes. What if I sound stupid? What if she loses interest? What if I embarrass myself? And because the brain hates uncertainty, it begins monitoring everything. Your tone, your posture, your eye contact. This is called self-monitoring overload, a psychological state where attention stops, flowing outward toward the interaction, and collapses inward toward yourself. And once that happens, your natural personality disappears. Not because it is fake, but because your brain is now using its energy for protection instead of connection. That is why you suddenly cannot think clearly. Why your jokes feel forced. Why silence feels painfully loud. Because part of your brain is no longer participating in the conversation. It is standing outside the conversation, scanning for danger. And this becomes even stronger if your self-worth is tied to approval, especially romantic approval. If attention from girls became emotionally important early in life, your brain may begin treating attraction like proof of value. And that changes everything. Now, rejection no longer feels like disappointment. It feels like evidence. Evidence that you are not enough, not attractive enough, not interesting enough, not confident enough. So the brain responds the same way it responds to any threat. Hyper-awareness. Because to the nervous system, social rejection once meant isolation. And isolation for ancient humans meant danger. Your brain still carries pieces of that survival wiring today, even inside a modern conversation. That is why sometimes you rehearse conversations before they happen, or replay them afterward for hours. You are not simply thinking too much. You are trying to avoid emotional pain before it arrives. And the more emotionally important someone feels, the more pressure the brain creates around them. But here is the strange contradiction. The more you try to impress someone, the less connected you feel to yourself, because your attention leaves the present moment and enters performance mode. You stop experiencing the interaction naturally. You start managing it, controlling it, optimizing it, like a person trying to carry water without spilling a single drop. Careful, rigid, tense, and humans can feel that tension, not because you are bad socially, but because real connection depends on psychological presence, not perfect performance. This is why some people who are not objectively confident still feel comfortable around others, because their attention stays external, curious, engaged, playful. Their brain is not trapped in constant self-evaluation, and that changes the entire emotional atmosphere. But there is another layer most people ignore. Sometimes discomfort around girls is not fear of rejection. It is fear of exposure, because attraction reveals things, your insecurities, your loneliness, your desire to be chosen, and vulnerability makes the nervous system alert. Especially if emotional openness once led to embarrassment, criticism, or humiliation. The brain remembers emotional pain very well, sometimes more vividly than physical pain. So it builds protection patterns. Avoid eye contact, act detached, hide interest, stay emotionally controlled. And over time, these defenses stop feeling like defenses. They start feeling like personality. But you are not broken. Your brain adapted. That discomfort is often an old protective system trying to prevent emotional risk. The problem is, what protects you from rejection can also block connection. And once you understand that, the goal changes completely. The goal is no longer be confident. The real goal is teaching your nervous system that connection is safe. And that requires a different approach entirely. The first step is simple. Stop trying to perform attraction. Instead, practice observing people. This sounds small, but it changes brain activity dramatically. Because anxiety grows when attention folds inward, curiosity pulls attention outward. Instead of thinking, how am I coming across? Train yourself to ask, what is this person actually like? That tiny shift reduces self-monitoring and gives the brain a new task besides self-protection. The second step is lowering psychological stakes. Your brain reacts strongly because it thinks every interaction is important. So stop treating ordinary conversations like life-changing moments. Behavioral psychology calls this threat reappraisal. The brain calms down when situations stop feeling tied to identity. For example, instead of thinking, I need her to like me, replace it with, this is just one human interaction. Small difference, massive neurological effect. Because your nervous system stops entering survival mode. The third step is allowing imperfection intentionally. This sounds counterintuitive, but controlled imperfection reduces fear conditioning. If you always try to appear smooth, smart, and flawless, your brain learns that mistakes are dangerous. But when you survive awkward moments without collapsing emotionally, the brain updates its prediction system. This is called exposure recalibration. For example, saying something slightly awkward and realizing the world does not end afterward. That experience matters more than motivational advice ever will. The fourth step is regulating your body before your thoughts. Most people try to think confident, but anxiety often begins physiologically first. Faster heartbeat, shallow breathing, muscle tension. Your body signals danger, then your mind creates explanations afterward. So slow the body first. Longer exhale. Relax your shoulders. Speak slightly slower, because the nervous system listens to physical signals more than positive affirmations. And finally, stop measuring your worth through reactions. This is the hardest part, but also the most important. Because the moment your self-worth depends on someone else's response, you stop meeting them freely. You meet them desperately, and desperation always creates pressure. Real confidence is not believing everyone will like you. It is knowing your identity survives even if they do not. In the end, the discomfort was never proof that you were weak. It was proof that your brain learned to attach emotion, identity, and survival to human connection. That is why the fear feels so real. But fear is not always truth. Sometimes it is just an old prediction repeating itself. And predictions can change. Slowly, quietly, one conversation at a time. Maybe that is what growing confidence actually is. Not becoming fearless, but becoming less afraid of being seen as human.